Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Twisted Talks. I'm Tanya.
I'm Josh.
And today it's Josh's turn to tell us a story for the week. And he is covering the case of Andrea Yates.
Yes. So, pre-introduction before we go into background. Andrea's from Houston, Texas, and she was born on the 2nd of July 1964, but I'll get into that again anyway in a minute. She confessed to drowning her 5 children in June of 2001 when she was 37 years old, and was initially found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison, but a court of appeals later reversed the conviction and found Andrea to be insane. So I just wanted to cover that first so that we know that, so that everyone knows going forward, first of all, that there is children involved.
Yes.
Second of all, that
there is more to the story than just a woman murdering her children.
It's not your typical killer, as in, like, there's mental health at play here.
Yeah, like, we're not excusing her actions by any means, but there is a lot more to consider than just, oh, she murdered her kids.
Yeah, like, there's a difference between cold-bloodedly murdering your kids and being so caught up in a delusion that's caused by mental illness.
Like that crazy bitch. No, sorry, she wasn't a crazy bitch, but that bitch that, I can't remember her fucking name. But the story that I'll probably cover at some point, basically she had 2 kids with her husband, 2 little boys, and I could potentially be mixing her up with someone else, so excuse me if I do get the details wrong. But basically her and her husband split. She started seeing this guy didn't want kids, so this bitch put her 2 little boys in the car and pushed the car into a lake.
You know, I feel like I heard that.
Yeah, so that's
Evil.
That's a different situation.
A decision.
Yeah, that was a decision. This was, I'll come up with the word later, but it was something else. So, yeah.
So,
Buckle up.
So, obviously, if it's not clear by now, trigger warning, involves children. There's nothing that I can recall being majorly graphic or anything, given what was done, but just to have that little trigger warning there, just for those of you that need it.
Like me, who might cry. But it's fine.
I can't wait to trigger you.
Yeah, you're such a good friend. I'm sure there's tissues somewhere in the car.
Well, I can smell baby wipes.
Oh, that's the air freshener, actually. It's meant to be cherry, but I have been getting like a baby powder, baby wipes.
I'm getting Pampers.
And I think that's because it's mixed with like this Daisy air freshener as well. It's my favourite air freshener.
You turned your dog into an air freshener?
No, Josh. Daisies are actually a flower. I just named my dog after a flower. Okay?
Or was the flower named after your dog?
Of course the flower was named after my dog. My dog is precious.
Anyway, so I'll jump in to the case. Anyway, sorry, no, I was having a moment. I will explain to you afterwards.
Okay. How about you pause it and explain to me now? Because I'm just going to think about it the whole case.
Okay, right. BRB, guys. So, as I said, Andrea Yates was born on the 2nd of July 1964. She was born Andrea Pia Kennedy, because obviously Yates is her married name. Born in Houston, Texas. Andrea was the youngest of 5 children to Jutta Karen Kohler and Andrew Emmett Kennedy. So, during her teenage years, Andrea suffered from bulimia and depression. She had actually, trigger warning, suicide. She had a discussion with a friend about suicide at 17 years old. So there's a history going back of, you know, like not even just at the time of everything kicked off, as we'll get into, but there is a long history of being mentally unwell and suffering with mental illness.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
You're processing.
I'm processing. I relate, is all I can say. I relate.
Same.
Hard.
Andrea was the captain of the swim team and an officer in the National Honor Society while attending Milby High School. In 1982, she graduated as class valedictorian. Andrea then pursued a 2-year pre-nursing program at the University of Houston before graduating from the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston in 1986. After graduating, she registered as a nurse at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. And during her time working there, she met her husband-to-be, Russell Yates, more commonly known as Rusty. And they
Rusty.
met... Yeah, I was like, what a nice little nickname to have.
Rusty Spoon.
They met at the Sunscape Apartments in the summertime of 1989. The pair ended up moving in together, and on the 17th of April 1993 they got married. The newly married couple then bought a 4-bedroom house in Friendswood, Texas. Andrea and Rusty's first child, Noah Jacob, was born on the 26th of February 1994. Not long after they had moved to Seminole, Florida, because Rusty had actually been offered a job there, so he accepted it. They moved there, and they actually moved into a small trailer. So at this point it was Rusty, Andrea, and their first child, Noah Jacob, their first son. On the 15th of December 1995, Andrea gave birth to their second child, John Samuel, in Florida, but the family moved back to Houston either before or just after having their third son, Paul Abraham, who was born on the 13th of September 1997. So
he's the same age as us.
Yeah. Oh, Christ, I didn't even...
that was a slip.
No, I didn't even think of that. Oh. That was an honest slip, to be fair.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's actually crazy to think about that, actually. That would be the same age as us.
25.
And going on 26, in September. That's so... Oh my God, wow, that's wild. Andrea, Rusty, and their 3 children, so all sons so far, lived in a GMC motorhome that Rusty had bought from Michael Waroniecki, if I'm pronouncing that right, who was a preacher with a fire and brimstone point of view,
of course.
Which Andrea had been captivated by. Do you know, she was captivated by his preachings and his outlook, I suppose.
If I recall correctly, they were quite a religious family, weren't they? They weren't like...
I don't think so.
Really? I don't know. I feel like I remember reading somewhere that they were like not super religious, but like it was something that was kind of important to them.
Yeah, but like Andrea was born a Roman Catholic, but I don't think they were like majorly into it. Do you know what I mean?
I could very well be confusing them with another case. Like there are sadly,
like I don't think they'd be the kind of religious like our grandparents and stuff would have been. Do you know, that kind of a way?
Yeah.
So. Oh yeah. Andrea and Rusty followed Michael's preachings that married couples should have as many children as nature allows. So they followed enough to keep
contraception.
Yeah,
so that's how my nana ended up with 14 kids.
So like there was
like many more pregnancies.
They must have been religious to some extent anyway. Like they seem like very not that people who are religious aren't normal, but like I mean they don't seem like, you know, like. They don't come across in my research as any like hyper religious or anything.
Like Bible thumpers.
But yet they were religious enough to be like keep popping them out until you're no longer popping them out, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Until the menopause hits.
Yeah. So. Oh yes. Andrea also took seriously Michael's preachings that their children would perish in hellfire for the sins of their parents. So.
Interesting.
But
doesn't like. Isn't there something in the Bible about not judging man by the sins of his father?
Probably.
I think there is.
No offence to anyone religious listening, but a bunch of other hypocrisy there with it. But
yeah. But look, in my personal opinion...
Same.
A lot of religion, specifically Catholicism, because that's what I was raised with.
Same.
And that's what I'm most familiar with, is just hypocrisy. There's a
lot
like,
of
hypocrisy.
Okay, right, let me just say this, right, there's a lot of hypocrisy, and obviously that's not on the Bible, it's on the way people interpret the Bible and the way certain people act. For example, this is just reminding me of a TikTok I saw the other day. So for example, if, let's say, you're someone who's religious and you hate the gays but you eat shrimp, in the Bible, in Leviticus, eating shrimp is just as much of an abomination as being gay.
Yes.
So if you following this whole anti-gay thing, then you shouldn't be eating shellfish.
Exactly. And I just want to give a disclaimer that, like, obviously I'm all for everyone following
what they want to follow, religious freedom.
Yeah, like the religion of their choice. Like, I would never judge anyone.
But I don't agree with it being enforced on people who don't have the same beliefs as you.
Yeah, like, I would be in the same mindset. Like, it's fine, like, worship whatever God you choose to believe in, whatever religion you choose to follow, that's absolutely fine. Just don't make it anyone else's problem.
The short of it is live and let live.
Live and let live, yeah.
Like,
there's no judgment on my part, unless you are one of those people who tries to force your religion down someone else's throat. Then, full judgment.
So, right, yeah, so anyway, just to recap, where is the mouse on my computer gone?
There she is.
Just to recap, so Andrea had taken seriously Michael's preachings that their children would perish in hellfire for the sins of their parents. Now, at some point in time, Andrea had a miscarriage, but she would still have more children. On the 15th of February 1999, Andrea gave birth to their fourth son, Luke David. However, she began to suffer from postpartum depression and psychosis, which were illnesses that actually ran in her family. On the 16th of June 1999, she was seen chewing on her fingers before attempting suicide the next day by overdosing on the antidepressant trazodone. Rusty admitted his wife into the Methodist Hospital, where she received a diagnosis of severe depressive disorder and was given prescription antidepressants. Now, unfortunately, these antidepressants must not have been much help for Andrea, as around a month later, on the 21st of July, she attempted suicide again, but this time with a knife. Andrea was admitted to Memorial Spring Shadows Glen, where she was prescribed Haldol, which is a typical antipsychotic medication, and this medication seemed effective on Andrea. After this, Rusty moved them, because remember, they were still in like a mobile home.
Yep.
So at this point, Rusty moved them into a house for the sake of Andrea's health, and Andrea's condition stabilised. But obviously, she was on her medication and had a home, so I suppose combo.
The stability probably helped a lot, yeah.
However, despite being advised by Dr. Eileen Starbranch, a psychologist, against having more children, the couple decided that Andrea would come off her medication to conceive another child. Andrea stopped taking her Haldol in March of 2000. On the 30th of November 2000, Andrea gave birth to the couple's fifth child, their first daughter, Mary Deborah. And Andrea remained in a stable condition until her father passed away on the 12th of March 2001.
Oh, that's awful. I can understand why that would be a big trigger for her mental health issues. Like, that is a horrible thing to happen.
After the death of her father, Andrea stopped talking, refused liquids, mutilated herself, and read the Bible feverishly. She also stopped feeding their most recent addition to the family, Mary Deborah. By the end of that month, Andrea was forcefully admitted to Devereaux, Texas treatment network, where she was briefly treated with Haldol. Just briefly, by the way, by psychiatrist Dr. Mohammed Saeed, but he discontinued it, saying that Andrea did not seem psychotic, and she was released.
Okay.
By the 3rd of May, Andrea had declined again. She had paced the house, stood in front of the TV screen and stared at it once for up to 45 minutes straight. She had been gazing into space for periods of up to 3 hours, and she was withdrawn and not communicating. Andrea was brought to hospital again. I believe it was on May 4th, where she spent 10 days and was told her last follow-up with Dr. Mohammed Saeed. She was told, in her last follow-up with Dr. Mohammed Saeed, to think positive thoughts and see a psychologist, and she was discharged once again.
Are you fucking shitting me? Mm-hmm. This is like when Cams tells you, have you tried a hot bath? When I was with Cams, right, I went to like 5 appointments.
Oh, for anyone who's not in Ireland and doesn't know what that is, it's Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services.
Yes. So basically, I started with Cams when I was like 14. I went to like 5 sessions and I just stopped going. I told my dad, I was like, I'm not fucking going back there, because I would like... Right, so a bit of backstory about me, guys. I've had depression since I was like 10. So the suicidal thoughts hit very early in my life. So I was 14 years old telling this woman that I did not want to be alive anymore. And I also had a couple of eating disorders brewing. This is very deep for a podcast. But anyway, so basically all she would tell me when I would tell her about these things was to take a hot bath or drink a cup of tea. And she persistently told me to drink tea, despite me telling her I do not drink tea. And to
this day, you don't like tea.
I have never been.
You don't even like water.
Yeah, like I'm very fussy with my drinks. Okay, I've never been a tea drinker, so that was just like the height.
And just to point out, I like tea, but tea did not solve my mental health issues.
No, it did not. I was there. It did not.
No. Like, I can't even remember when I started with Cams, but I know it was earlier than that, because when I first started, I was actually like in there being watched by a psychologist and able to play with toys and everything and play with whiteboard markers and stuff. So I started very early.
He was a baby. So yeah, in conclusion, Cams was not helpful. And if you search Cams, which like is CAMHS on TikTok, you will get many people telling the exact same story that I have just told you about being told to take a hot bath or drink a hot beverage, specifically tea.
Yeah.
And then she was like, have you tried herbal teas? I was like, yes, they taste like damp.
Damp?
They do.
I remember you said that to me before. I think it was about specifically chamomile.
Yeah, it tastes like damp. They all taste like damp,
herbal tea.
damp, wet leaves to me.
I hope you took the leaves out.
I had tea bags. They were in tea bags.
Oh, okay.
But, like, just not my thing. It's just not
Me
my
there
thing.
picturing you slugging on leaves.
Yeah.
I was like, no wonder you don't
Nettle
like
tea.
it. Ah, my tongue! No.
So yeah, that was a bit more than I intended to share on the podcast, but there you go, guys.
And much the same, minus the ED.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't know. Because trauma can't make me remember. What the trauma is, I can't remember either.
Yeah, same. It was something, but who knows?
It was a whole lot of something, but my brain's trying to say there's nothing.
So diving back to Andrea.
Yes. Andrea continued to be under the care of Dr. Mohammed Saeed until the 28th of June 2001. At a family gathering only days before the 28th of June, Rusty, Andrea's husband, had mentioned wanting to leave Andrea alone with the children for an hour each morning and evening to improve her independence. Mm-hmm. Okay. I feel like if you're in that shoes, that it makes sense to try and easily, make a small decision like that for a small amount of time. I was like,
you're not just going to land her with the kids for the
full
day.
I suppose it is only a month after the last hospital admission. Well, just over a month, because a few days before the 20th. So I feel like still a little bit soon, in my opinion.
Yes,
but
at the
I'm
same
not
time,
judging the judgment that was made.
Like he's
the
living
call
with
that was
her.
made.
He's living with her. He made this decision based on what he knew of her.
Yeah, so on the 28th of June 2001, Rusty left for work and had asked his mother, Dora, to come to their house in the Clear Lake City suburb 1 hour later to take over and take care of the children, so that he'd be gone. She'd be alone for an hour, and then his mother would rock on to take over.
Yeah.
Before Dora could get to Andrea and Rusty's house, Andrea had filled the bathtub with water, and starting with John, she drowned the three youngest boys one by one, and then put them on the bed, on her bed, and covered them. Andrea then drowned Mary and left her floating in the bathtub. The oldest son, Noah, came into the bathroom and asked his mother what was wrong with Mary. Then he turned and ran away. Andrea ran after him, caught up to him as he screamed. Andrea dragged him and forced him into the bathtub next to Mary's floating body. Noah fought desperately, coming up for air twice, but Andrea continued to hold him down until he was dead. Andrea then took Mary's body from the bathtub and brought her body to the bed and put her in the arms of her brothers, and Noah had been left floating in the bathtub. So I'm like, the thing is, like, even though what she was so awful, I'm like, she placed them in bed and then actually placed the youngest, the baby, in the arms of the other ones. Now, Noah was still in the bathtub, but yeah. So at 9:48 a.m. on that day, Wednesday, June 20th, 2001, 8 minutes before she called her husband, Andrea Yates had phoned 911. "I need a police officer," she said, breathing unsteadily into the phone. "What's the problem?" Police telecommunicator Doreen Stubblefield asked. "I just need him to come," Andrea said. "I need to know why they are coming," Doreen persisted. "Is your husband there?" "No." "What's the problem?" "I need him to come." "I need to know why they are coming," Doreen repeated. There was no response, just Andrea breathing irregularly, as if an intruder might be holding a gun to her head, or, something like that.
Yeah.
"Is he standing next to you?" Doreen asked. Andrea fumbled the phone. "Are you having a disturbance?" Doreen asked, thinking this could be, a domestic problem. Andrea did not respond, and Doreen had to figure out whether she was sending officers into a dangerous situation or not. "Are you ill or what?" "Yes, I'm ill." "What kind of medical problem?" Seconds went by with no answer from Andrea. "You need an ambulance, ? So do you need an ambulance? Doreen suggested. "No, I need a police officer," Andrea said. "Do you need an ambulance?" Doreen repeated. "No." "Yes, send an ambulance." Andrea's breath had become more laboured, and then there was nothing but static. "Hello," Doreen asked, urgency building in her voice. Still no answer. "Is someone burglarising your house?" Doreen asked. "No." "What is it?" asked... Sorry, I just got blinded by the car that drove by. "What is it?" asked Doreen, frustrated. Silence again. "What kind of medical problem are you having?" More time passed by. Andrea once more asked Doreen for a police officer. "Are you at 942 Beachcomber?" "Yes," Andrea replied. "Are you there alone?" "Yes," Andrea said. Suddenly there was more static, then another long silence. Doreen wondered if she'd lost the call, and then the sound of panicked breathing returned. "Andrea Yates?" "Yes," Andrea replied. "Is your husband there?" "No, I'm sick." "How are you sick?" Doreen asked. Yates' answer couldn't be made out. It was unintelligible. "Andrea Yates, is your husband there?" "No." Why do you need a policeman, ma'am? I just need him to be here. For what? I just need him to come. A long silence ensued, followed by static. You're sure you're alone? By now Doreen knew something was wrong, but was Andrea refusing to answer her questions, or was someone stopping her from answering? After 8 years on the job, Doreen thought she knew how to recognise a battered wife when she heard one. No, Andrea said finally, my kids are here, but and she continued to breathe like
Erratically.
erratically, yeah. How old are the children? 7, 5, 3, 2 and 6 months. You have 5 children? Yes. She might not know exactly what was wrong, but 5 children were enough to satisfy Doreen. Okay, we'll send an officer. Thank you, Andrea said politely and hung up. Then, at 9:56am, Andrea rang Rusty. Not even an hour had gone by since he had left home. That morning before Rusty had left, he had given Andrea her 300mg morning dose of her antidepressant Exifer, and the night before he had given her 45mg dose of the antidepressant Remeron.
He's very close to my car. Okay, sorry, I thought he was going to hit my wing mirror.
He wasn't that close.
It looked like he was close from where I'm sitting. Sorry.
So Tanya's car has not been damaged.
Yes, thank God.
And the night before he'd given her 45mg dose of the antidepressant Remeron with a 15mg dissolvable Remeron Soltab booster. Andrea had been at the kitchen table eating cereal out of the box before Rusty had left. Rusty was supposed to have a presentation at 10:30am. Rusty actually worked at NASA. On the phone, Andrea said, you need to come home, in a voice Rusty had only heard once before, which was not long after the birth of their 4th son Luke, when Andrea had had a nervous breakdown. However, that time Andrea had asked him to come home from work, but this time she was telling him to. What's wrong? Rusty asked. It's time, Andrea said. What do you mean? Rusty asked. It's time, Andrea repeated. Rusty didn't need to hear any more. He knew that something wasn't right.
Yeah.
He left his office and only stopped briefly to inform a colleague that he had a family emergency. Rusty sped through the lobby and out the main doors of NASA Building 1 and rang his mother on his way. Mom, are you there yet? Rusty asked. No, Dora answered. Hurry, something's wrong at the house, Rusty told his mother. Rusty was 10 minutes away. He ran across the employee car park to his SUV and rang Andrea from behind the wheel. Is anybody hurt? He asked. Yes, Andrea replied. Who? Rusty asked. The kids, Andrea answered. Which ones? Rusty asked. All of them, she replied.
It's awful.
Uniformed Officer David Knapp was patrolling alone in his marked police car. He was doing the 6am to 2pm shift in South Houston at the time. His radio announced a dispatch to Beachcomber Lane at 9:52am, a 911 call. David needed to do a welfare check. David had done crisis intervention training before, which would obviously help him with welfare checks. He was met at the front door of the address by a wet white woman with long dark hair. She was wide-eyed and breathing heavily. What do you need a police officer for, ma'am? He asked. I just killed my kid, she said, looking David straight in the eyes. Understandably, that's not what David had expected to hear, and he was not prepared for that either. So why is all he could think to ask.
Yeah, like he was on the spot.
And she just goes, I killed my kids, Andrea repeated flatly. Where are they? David asked. They're in the bed. Andrea motioned Officer David Knapp into the house and down to the master bedroom, where a king-size mattress and box springs, or as we'd call him, a divan, sat on the floor. The first thing Officer Knapp noticed was a small child's arm sticking out from under the sheets. The arm was porcelain white, and Knapp later found out it was the arm of 2-year-old Luke Yates. When he pulled back the covers, he had the impression, so this part is quote, the impression the children were all in bed resting peacefully. It appeared the children were tucked in. Mary's head was lying on her older brother's arm. Officer Knapp checked each of the children for signs of life. He noted a frothy substance under... This is awful. He noticed a frothy substance under 3 of the children's noses, which was a sign that their lungs had more or less burst. There was no way that the officer or emergency medical services could revive them now. It was too late.
Sorry, I'm going to need a second to process that.
Yeah. I was like...
That is...
The lungs just gave out.
I can't even think of a word for that.
Now, obviously, more or less burst isn't a medical terminology. That's his own words quoted, for that part. But I'm assuming it's essentially, there's just probably a different medical word. But they gave up anyway. But yeah. The next on the scene was Officer Frank Stumpo. He had also been called to the scene on a welfare check. Frank pulled up, approached with caution, knocked and opened the door, where he found Officer Knapp in the family room with Andrea. Officer Stumpo went down the hallway to the bedroom, the same as Officer David Knapp had. Frank Stumpo said, "I saw a sparsely furnished room with a mattress on the floor, and I saw a little head on the mattress. I thought it was a doll. The closer I got, the more it came into focus, and when I got close enough, I realised it was the head of a child. I touched the child's head. It was warm to the touch." And then in the guest bathtub, he then found the fifth child, the body of 7-year-old Noah, floating face down with no pulse. Andrea Yates was sitting on a blue love seat with Officer Knapp sitting beside her. Knapp asked for her driver's licence, which Andrea gave him, and he also asked for permission to use the phone in the adjacent kitchen to call his supervisor, which she also agreed to. 9 minutes after Officer Knapp entered the house, Sergeant David Svan, a patrol supervisor, arrived in response to the Code 1 call from his officers. As far as I can find, a Code 1 is an urgent call or threat to life in Houston.
Okay.
So, urgent call in this case. Knapp stayed seated with Andrea, and Stumpo went to the front door to meet his sergeant. "She killed her kids," Stumpo told the sergeant. Sergeant David authorised Stumpo to arrest and handcuff Andrea Yates, and then did a walkthrough of the home, which was now an active crime scene. Additional officers arrived at the scene next and began to put crime scene tape around the house. Sergeant David Svan stood post at the just inside the entrance of the Yates home, just inside the door.
Mm-hmm.
He heard a scream from outside and ran out the front to see a man in his mid-30s duck under the yellow tape. The man was visibly upset, yelling. The man was Rusty Yates, the children's father and Andrea's husband. Sergeant David remembers Rusty pleading, "What did she do to my kids? What did she do to my kids?" And Rusty had said his wife had called him at work and told him it was time to come home. His wife told him she had hurt all 5 of the kids and that she finally did it. Sergeant David Svan told Rusty that all of his 5 children had passed away, and Svan said that Rusty fell to the ground and began hitting it and screaming. When Rusty got up off of the ground, he grabbed a plastic garden chair and threw it. He didn't throw it at anyone or anything in particular, just threw it. Before falling to the ground again and taking the fetal position, still screaming. Back inside the house, Officer Stumpo asked Andrea, "Do you realise what you've done?" "Yes," she replied. Rusty heard crying and thought it was Andrea, but it was Dora, his mother. She had just arrived and been told that her grandchildren were all dead. Rusty hit his fists against the side of the house, and Rusty later recalled, "I was crying for the kids and crying for Andrea and crying because I knew I could never trust her again. It broke my heart. Andrea is the only person I met that I ever wanted to marry." There was speculation that what Andrea did was premeditated, as on May 3rd, 2001, she had filled the bathtub, but at that time, Andrea was acting on a different delusion, so there's no concrete evidence that the heartbreaking events that took place on June 20th, 2001 were in any way premeditated at all, because, as I said, it was a different delusion taking place in May. At 11 a.m. on that awful day, Officer Bob King and his partner, Officer Douglas Bacon, who were both homicide investigators, arrived at the crime scene to begin gathering evidence. Sergeant Boyd Smith was also with them, and he interviewed Dora, Rusty's mother, outside. Officer King took one look at Andrea and asked that her handcuffs be removed. He read Andrea her rights one at a time, and she nodded or said yes to all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Officer King then asked, "Are you willing to give up your right to remain silent and have an attorney present?" "Yes," Andrea answered. He then asked for consent to search the house, giving her a voluntary consent for search and seizure form. Andrea spent about 30 seconds reading it and then signed it. Mm-hmm. Officer King found some dry clothes in the house for Andrea and asked her would those clothes be okay. She nodded. Officer King gave the dry clothes to Officer Stumpo. As there was no female officer present, Andrea would have to wait until at the jail to get changed. Andrea was later interviewed by Sergeant Eric Mell, but a lot of the interview is just her saying yes or confirming details, which I've now already gone over. But there is a part...
Excuse me.
There is a part I do want to mention from the interview. Okay, you had told me earlier that you'd been having these thoughts about hurting your children for up to 2 years. Is that about right? Sergeant Mel asked. Yes, Andrea responded. Okay, is there anything that happened 2 years ago that made you believe...
Sorry.
You're okay, just...
I got asthma.
Asthma is not being nice today. Or this week, actually, really.
It's because of the sinus infection.
Oh, yes, fair point. Oh yeah, so okay, is there anything that happened 2 years ago that made you believe, led you to have these thoughts? I realised that it was time to be punished, Andrea answered. And what do you need to be punished for, Mel asked. For not being a good mother, Andrea replied. How did you see drowning your 5 children as a way to be punished, Mel questioned. Andrea did not answer, so Mel had to encourage her. Did you want the criminal justice system to punish you, or did you... Yes, Andrea answered before he even finished the sentence.
Okay.
Rusty Yates spent that night at the Extended Stay America Hotel with his mother and only sibling Randall, or Randy, who had flown in from Tampa. I believe I read somewhere as well that obviously, because it was so last minute, Randall or Randy didn't have actually the money, so I think colleagues at work all pooled money together to get him home. Well, not to get him home, but to get him
to his brother.
Yeah, to his family. So there is more information out there about the crime scene and phone calls Randy received from their health insurance provider and Dr. Mohammed Saeed, but I think that all the information so far is enough to cover the case.
Yeah.
They'd just be extra things, so you can look into them, look them up. There is loads out there. Next to come was the trials even, plural. In Andrea Yates' trial, Rusty stood by his wife, claiming it was the illness and not Andrea that had been to blame for the death of their children. Andrea pleaded innocence by reason of insanity, citing postpartum psychosis. Medical experts on... also, I have to say, go Rusty for standing by her for the trial.
Yeah, I have to say as well, like, I was very impressed by how the police handled the situation. Like that one officer that
Take the
asked
cuffs
her
off.
to be uncuffed and went to find her clothes he was clearly able to see.
They could tell that they did have someone
Yeah.
who was ill in front of them.
Yeah, and even like the way she was acting, I suppose, would be very obvious to me as
And
someone
if someone
who's
was
suffering
just
with mental
wanting to
illness.
not have their kids and still live their life, they wouldn't ring the guard straight away.
No.
Regardless, well, the cops in this case, because America. But and they wouldn't straight away sign, things saying you can search and seize whatever you find.
Yeah, exactly.
And, regardless of mental health, well-being, if someone wasn't mentally ill and was just trying to get away with it, none of that would have been as easy at all.
Yeah.
And even waive her right to an attorney and her right to remain silent.
Yeah.
So medical experts on both the prosecution and defence agreed that Andrea was mentally ill, but prosecution experts said that she knew the difference between right and wrong. Dr. Michael Wellner, a forensic psychiatrist, testified for the prosecution that Andrea carried out an efficient and well-planned murder. She knew it was wrong. Wellner's theory to back this up was Andrea kept her homicidal plan private and did not share the details of her psychoses until after the killings. But I don't get that. If you're in a psychosis, how are you going to know that you should share it, or what?
Yeah.
If is the psycho?
That's the whole thing with psychosis, is that you don't know you're having psychosis. You genuinely,
it's very real to you.
It's extremely real. Like, whether you believe that the devil is living in your bedroom or people are out to get you.
But fair enough, I get it that if a psychosis is strong enough, she could be turning around to everyone and being like, I need to kill my kids, I need to drown them, I need to do it. But also, can part of the psychosis not be the fact that you can't tell anyone because...
Yeah, I suppose I've never actually had psychosis, or like severe psychosis like that. So I suppose I can't really speak on it too much, but just from what I know of people who have suffered psychosis, and I suppose it's a different situation for everyone.
Yeah.
But the people that I know that have suffered with psychosis haven't understood while they were having the psychosis that that's what was happening.
Yeah.
Like, to them, the situation felt very, extremely real.
Exactly. Prosecutors had theorised that Andrea had drowned her children to escape the overwhelming stress of raising and homeschooling them.
She was homeschooling them as well?
Yeah, I didn't know that until I was researching. Well, obviously, but from what I'd heard before, I never knew it until this. Dr. Philip Resnick, also a forensic psychiatrist, testified that Andrea believed deeply that killing her children was the right thing to do, Andrea believed that Satan had taken over her body and soul and was eyeing her children's souls next. So then if that's the case, I move back to the other psychiatrist that testified for the prosecution. Of course she wouldn't share the details of how she was going to kill them, because if anyone stopped her, then Satan gets the children.
So in her mind, she was protecting them.
Yeah. She was, I suppose, going by her interview, she was, in her psychosis, she was killing them to protect them from Satan, and also to punish herself for being a bad mother. And also, if we want to bring that Michael dude into it, he said that children that will perish in hellfire for their parents' sins.
Yeah.
So, you know, kill them while there's nothing for them to go to burn in hellfire.
Yeah.
And to save them in her psychosis. Andrea had told Resnick and others who had evaluated her in the weeks after her arrest that she believed that if she killed her children while they were still innocent, they would be sent to heaven and she would have defeated Satan. Andrea turned herself in straight after the drownings, as she thought she would be given the death penalty. Resnick said that Andrea thought her own death would fulfill a biblical prophecy. If she were executed, Satan would be executed.
So this is still a very prevalent psychosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another to testify was forensic psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz. He had testified about an episode of Law and Order in which a woman got away with drowning her children in the bathtub by pleading insanity. Prosecutors suggested in the trial that Andrea watched the show and saw it as a way out.
Stop now.
Wait for it though. We'll come back to him. In March of 2002, the jury rejected the insanity defence and found Andrea guilty of capital murder. So basically murder, and it's capital because it's involving children.
Yeah.
They rejected the death penalty and recommended life imprisonment with the eligibility of parole in 40 years. Andrea did not understand the verdict and had to ask her attorney what it meant.
Okay, so she was
still not there.
Not fully herself.
Andrea and Rusty had, as I said earlier, gotten married on April 17th of 1993, and after 11 years of marriage, in August of 2004, Rusty filed for divorce. In his divorce petition, he stated that him and his wife had not lived together as husband and wife since on or about the 28th of June 2001, the day of the children's deaths.
Yeah.
George Parnham, Andrea's defence attorney, said that he was sure she was aware of the divorce request. George said, Andrea knew this was coming. She had been aware of it for some time. I don't think Rusty would pull this on her unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And there's no questioning the fact that he still cares deeply for Andrea. George Parnham was also handling Andrea's criminal appeal. On January 6th of 2005, the Texas Court of Appeals reversed the convictions and ordered a new trial. From what I gathered, this decision was strongly influenced by testimony given in the original trial. Remember Dr. Park Dietz saying about that Law and Order episode and the prosecution suggesting Andrea followed the show and was using what she had seen as a way out? The problem with that testimony and suggestion from the prosecution was no such episode existed. Park had mistakenly mixed two different episodes of Law and Order into one, creating the storyline he gave in his testimony.
So he didn't even
research. Yeah, but I don't think he needed research because I think he works with Law and Order.
Okay, fair enough.
So, obviously, it was an innocent mistake, but it's not a situation where you should be even saying anything unless you're 100%. The Court of Appeals had concluded that there was a reasonable likelihood that Dr. Dietz's false testimony could have affected the judgment of the jury.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. Soon after the divorce of Andrea and Rusty was finalised on the 17th of March 2005, Rusty began dating Laura Arnold. In December of 2005, Rusty took Laura to meet his extended family and he proposed to Laura that month. Once Rusty and Laura had set a wedding date, Rusty had visited his ex-wife and told the Associated Press in an email that Andrea had been aware of the wedding for a couple of months and she wishes him the best, just as Rusty wished her the best. However, according to a friend of Andrea, Bob Holmes, Andrea only learned of the wedding date from the public announcement of it, and Andrea wishes them well but was hurt that she did not hear it from him.
Okay, so it's kind of conflicting stories.
Yeah. Rusty Yates and Laura Arnold got married on the 25th of March 2006. On the 26th of July 2006, the verdict of the new trial. The jury of 6 women and 6 men had deliberated for around 13 hours over a period of 3 days, and they rejected the prosecution's theory that Andrea Yates knew her actions were wrong when she drowned her 5 children. The jury found Andrea not guilty by reason of insanity. Todd Frank said on behalf of the jurors, "It was very clear to us all that she did have psychosis before, during and after." Prosecutor Joe Owenby said in a statement after the verdict was delivered, 5 years ago Andrea Yates called the police to inform them of what she had done to her 5 children. It was no mystery then who ended their lives. We are extremely disappointed with the verdict. Co-prosecutor Caelan Williford said, "This case has always been about bringing justice for these children." Rusty Yates, who was under a strict gag order during his ex-wife's trial, expressed his frustrations with the court and the prosecutors after the verdict. Rusty said, "Who are they really serving? Do they think the children would want Andrea to be in prison? Do they think we, her family on either side, want Andrea to be in prison? Is it of any public benefit for Andrea to be in prison? Is she a danger to anyone?" Rusty also said, "It's amazing to me. I'm so proud of the jury for seeing past that."
Okay.
So he was happy with the not guilty by insanity.
So he really, I suppose...
He knows that the woman he loved, and probably to some extent still loves, is not capable of that.
Yeah, he understood, and I suppose the fact that he was married to her, they were in love, they lived together, they had the kids, he probably had more of an understanding of her mental health than anyone else would have, because he had seen it, and from what you've...
And at the end of the day, even if the prosecutors could see it from that point of view, they're not able to do that, because it's their job to prosecute.
Yeah. But even by what you've kind of read out during your research there, he just seemed very understanding of the whole situation.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, fair play to him, because
he's aware that the mental health, kind of the psychosis, depression, everything like that is like an entity that's in Andrea, and it's not Andrea.
It's not who she is. It doesn't define her.
No.
But just... Honestly, the man lost his 5 children in the same day to their mother, his wife.
And not only did he lose his 5 children, he lost his first wife, essentially, as well.
He lost his whole family, really, when you think about it.
In literally the space of less than an hour.
Yeah. But I'm glad he's remarried and he's happy, and...
Yeah, don't get ahead of yourself.
Oh, God.
The foreman of the jury, Todd Frank, spoke about his 6-month-old son at home and said that he and his fellow jurors endured the most emotionally and intellectually challenging experience of their lives serving on Andrea's trial. When asked if the jurors had a message to give with their verdict, Todd Frank said, "Don't let this happen again. Do what you've got to do with legislation, with the insurance companies. Don't let this happen again."
Yeah, he's right, honestly.
Soon after the verdict, Andrea was committed to North Texas State Hospital Vernon campus, a maximum security state mental health facility in North Texas. And then in January of 2007, Andrea was transferred to Kerrville State Hospital, another mental health facility. But this one, I believe I read somewhere, is low security.
Okay.
Other bits. Andrea's family filed a complaint on the 10th of April 2002 with the District Attorney's Office about psychiatrist Dr. Mohammed Saeed, who was treating Andrea at the time she drowned her 5 children.
Yes.
Yeah. The complaint alleges that Dr. Saeed did not properly manage Andrea's medication and released her from the hospital when she was dangerously delusional. The complaint, signed by Andrea's 2 brothers and her mother, states, "We feel that Dr. Saeed's actions of excessive harmful treatment and his lack of action to warn about the endangerment of the children made him negligent in his duty to protect the children." The Austin chapter of the International Citizens Commission on Human Rights, a mental health watchdog group, helped the family to make the complaint. The president of the Austin chapter, Jerry Boswell, said that the complaint does not ask specifically that criminal charges be filed, but its goal is to see Saeed charged with criminal negligence. Brian Kennedy, one of Andrea's brothers, said that he believes Dr. Saeed should be charged with negligent homicide. Okay, I personally think that's a step too far.
Yes.
Negligence, I would say, but homicide. No.
I don't think that he
Nobody could have predicted that.
Yeah, I don't think he knew or predicted or expected what happened to happen when he let her go. I do
agree criminal negligence. I don't agree negligent homicide.
I think he was just too dismissive of her, which is...
Too common,
especially with mental health conditions. And the sad thing is, it does usually lead to something much worse. Something that could be prevented, whether it's murder or suicide
or any of the likes,
self-harm, anything. So, long story short, if you're a psychiatrist, listen to your fucking patients, please.
And if you already do, we love you.
Yes, we stan. You
I'm
get a boulabus.
Boulabus. Clap, clap. Jerry Boswell said that Dr. Saeed's management of Andrea's medications was irresponsible. She should have been kept on the Haldol.
She should have. Yeah. She was doing well, and then when she came off it to have Mary, she backslid, and he should have kept her on it.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure then she was put on it for that 10-day program thingy, as far as I know.
Yeah.
But then it was like discontinued and not left on it, and she should have been left on it.
10 days isn't long enough for something like that to kick in when you've been off it for like however
Well,
long
I don't know
she
how
was
long
off
that kind of one takes to kick in. Like, I know what most antidepressants and stuff it can take. Like, antidepressants-wise, I know it can take a few weeks to a
Haldol was an
month.
antipsychotic, wasn't it?
But I don't know in terms of antipsychotic.
Yeah, okay, that's
and
fair.
maybe some antidepressants might be faster acting. I don't know. So I'm not 100% sure where I stand on that.
Fair enough. I retract my statement.
But you could still be right. I'm just saying I don't know.
Yeah. One of us is right, we just don't know which one.
But, yeah. So, nearly finished up now. There's just a little bit. According to Dr. Moira Dolan, the Executive Director of the Medical Accountability Network, homicidal ideation was added to the list of rare side effects of Exafor in 2005, an antidepressant medication that Andrea Yates had been taking before she drowned her 5 children. Whether that played a role in what happened can never really be known, but it is definitely important to make people aware of such extreme potential side effects. Fair enough that side effect may not have been known about before 2005, but I feel with any medication, and with what knowledge is available at the time of starting a new prescription, certain side effects should definitely be highlighted, no matter how small the chance of experiencing that side effect is, so that people can make an informed decision and know what to look out for.
And especially when it's something as serious as homicidal ideation.
Yes. Now, fair enough, that wasn't known about until around 2005-ish.
But we would hope that it's something that patients are told now when they're put on the medication.
I'd say they're not, so that they don't get scared off.
Yeah.
And now, yes, I know in saying that most medications come with a leaflet with a list of possible side effects, but realistically, how often do people read any, let alone all, of the leaflet? Now, to be fair, I know at the end of the day, if you care about the side effects, you look.
Yeah, but like the only time I can say I've ever actually read the leaflet that came with any medication was when I first went on the pill.
Yeah.
And that was scary. The amount of side effects from the pill is terrifying.
Yeah. And it's like the same with most medications. There's such a long list.
Now,
bear in mind, there's obviously, most of them are very, 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 rare, and the more common ones are very,
minor.
But
I think a lot of it just stems from people feel like you should be able to trust your doctor, and you feel like your doctor isn't going to put you on something that's going to put you in danger.
Yeah.
But then in saying that, we know people who have penicillin allergies and their doctor has given them penicillin antibiotics.
But, so word of advice, if you're going on any medications, make sure to ask your doctor and your pharmacist loads of questions if you feel you need to. Remember, that's what they're there for. Don't feel bad about wanting to ask about it.
Don't feel like
and
you
maybe
are
do read the side
them.
effects of a leaflet.
Yeah, don't sit there and feel like you're going to disrespect your doctor, or your doctor is going to feel like you're trying to undercut them.
And if they act disrespected, that's on them.
That's on them, and they should not be a doctor.
There. But yeah, and also just read the quick part, the quick section with side effects as well. Maybe I'm going to do that from now on.
Yeah.
I might want to check the ones I'm actually on. Yeah. But hope homicidal ideation's not there.
Me too.
So the final thing I will mention is just a little update on Rusty Yates. Rusty Yates' wife Laura gave birth to their son on the 20th of March 2008. So he has a son now. And unfortunately, Rusty and Laura separated in 2015. And that is all I have. I just wanted to
throw that in there to not leave Rusty out at the end. That was a very sad case.
Yeah, it's awful, and it's just I think had the health, had the services that were been better,
had she received the treatment that she deserved and is entitled to.
I don't think any of this would have happened.
None of this, this was so easily preventable.
Now,
in my opinion,
I don't know did I say it, but obviously there has every single year without fail. Andrea Yates has refused a hearing to be released from mental institutions.
Okay, so she
is, obviously, because she would be eligible, but every single year since she's been offered to have hearings for release, she's refused it.
And I suppose a lot of that would stem from it must have been so awful and so heartbreaking for her when she came out of the psychosis and realised what she had done.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even begin to imagine living with the knowledge that you killed your 5 children. And, like, yes, she was mentally ill, and yes, she'd
still, for example, look at her own hands and know they're the ones that did it.
And know that they were the ones that did it.
Whether it was her cognitive ability that did it or her mental illness, which we know it was definitely a mental illness.
Yeah.
But it's still her body that did what it did.
She has to live with the knowledge that she did that.
Like, that's the kind of thing you see in, like, TV shows where people snap out of a psychosis and then cut their hands off because they're like, I did that with these hands.
I've never seen that in a TV show, but okay.
I don't know where I saw it, but I've definitely seen it.
Okay. What the fuck are you watching, Josh?
Says the one here sitting beside me doing a true crime podcast.
Yeah, okay, that's... You got me there. You got me there.
But yeah, so that concludes the case of Andrea Yates, and I hope that, you know, the kids are resting in peace and that, you know, Rusty's getting on well in life, and that obviously Andrea's still in the hospital, but I hope she's doing much better.
Yes.
And that all her family are okay and are as okay as you can be. And that I suppose Rusty and Laura's son is doing well.
Just all the positive vibes.
Yeah, to all of them and everyone, and also to anyone
who has ever dealt with anything similar to this, who has ever dealt with
mental
postpartum
health,
depression,
miscarriage, anything.
Like, postpartum, it terrifies me.
Yeah, and it wasn't recognised for so long.
I know, like, it fucking terrifies me. And the amount of women that would have suffered from postpartum depression, and in the times where it wasn't known about.
Yeah, and, like, in the times they would have literally been when it wasn't known about. Like, now I'm not on about more recent times, I'm on about really, really far back.
Yeah.
Like, they literally would have just been literally diagnosed hysterical, and thrown away for life into a mental institution where they were treated. And God knows what, and whenever it was, if it was even far back, they'd have been gotten a lobotomy.
Yeah, a lobotomy.
Well, not even gotten a lobotomy, being lobotomized.
Yeah, but yeah, postpartum it's terrifying. It's fucking terrifying, and like, there are amazing supports out there these days. I'm not sure based on what country you guys are from, but I know in Ireland, I think women are fairly well looked after in the postpartum period. As far as I know, I don't know, I've never had kids. Yeah, well, I would hope so, but I don't hold that much hope when the mental health services in this country are a load of fucking bollocks anyway. That's true. Now, for those of you that have had good experience with mental health services, I'm delighted for you. Yes, and please send them our way. Yeah. Please. What area are you living in? Where do I need to move? Where do we move to? Where are me and my birds going? Is it Kerry? Is it Kilkenny? Is it Laois? Is it Louth? Where? Dublin. Dublin? I doubt it's Dublin. Sorry. Well, surely they'd have to have something good in place because it's the capital as well. So, I mean, even for the sake of the government trying to keep up appearances. Yeah, our capital is thriving. She's doing well, boy. She's doing well. But, so yeah. Thank you once again for listening, guys. If you've got kids, give them a big squeeze, please. Big hug. Yeah. Was I going to say anything else? No, I don't think so. That'll do it. That'll do. So, in conclusion, thanks for listening. Mind yourselves. Hug your kids. If you don't have kids, hug yourself. If you suffer with your mental health, please look after it. I know it's hard. I know it's challenging. Yeah. But do what you can. Do what you can. Do your best. That's all we ask. Just do your best. And your best is perfectly good enough. Unless it's not. No, I'm joking. Josh. Leave them alone. You know what it's like. Yeah. That's my brain. Your best got you here. I don't know whether to thank it or punch it. I mean, we're doing a podcast. Thank it. Yeah, and I'm going to America in a month. You're so excited. So also, not this episode, but some of these episodes that you'll be listening to soon will be extremely pre-recorded because I will be out of the country for 4 weeks. And I'm also going to London for 3 days next month. Yes, so with my sister. I love how Tanya was like, I've got to go to London for 3 days with my sister. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to one-up you and I'm going to America for 4 weeks. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to a barber thing with Maeve because Maeve is a barber. Very talented barber. And then Josh was like, 2 weeks later, he was like, I'm going to America for a month. It's like 2 weeks in Salt Lake City and 2 weeks in New York. Get back in your fucking box, bitch. Yeah, and then me fully convinced that you booked Salt Lake City because we had done Ted Bundy. No, it's because my friend is there. It's just a happy coinky dink. Well, I don't know if I call it happy coinky dink. Oh.
Oh,
Microphone.
the microphone is trying to seduce me.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's
I'm
enough.
cutting us off.
Yeah.
Because
we got to record
Yeah,
another
we've got to
one.
record my solo.
So, thanks again, guys. We love you. Mind yourselves. Hug yourselves. Hug your family. Hug your children. All that mojo.
Yeah.
Lots of love. And ciao for now. Hasta luego. Bye.
Slán!
Where's the stop on?